Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The scheme of things within which one finds oneself is called Bhagavan. Really, that's what it is. And that's what I meant yesterday when we talked about how that which cannot be altered is an altar of prayer, is an altar of surrender in the Hindu tradition. So, we are not looking at some faraway God that has abandoned the universe, having made it, repaired to a pleasant place called heaven, while all unpleasantness is being unleashed upon us on the earth. No. In the very fabric of the universe, its cause inheres. The cause inheres the effect. Just like the yarn is there in every part of the fabric, in every part of the fabric is not without yarn. So too the whole Jagat, is along with its cause. Without the cause, the Jagat would collapse because the Jagat is mithya. Mithya doesn't mean false. Mithya means dependent upon the cause. And without the Jagat, the cause will not collapse. The cause is consciousness invested with the power to create. Immense, limitless creative power. And so, the same consciousness, when it is endowed with this power, has a name, Ishvara, Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam, Yat Kincha Jagatyam Jagat. This whole Jagat is pervaded by this Ishvara. Just like the yarn pervades the fabric. There is no place of the fabric that is devoid of the yarn. It upholds the yarn, it upholds the fabric, into which the fabric resolves and which creates the fabric, sustains the fabric. So too the whole fabric of the Jagat is Bhagavan. So that is, that same consciousness endowed with the ability to, create, to take back, to sustain, and that same very consciousness endowed with a limited ability, inhibited by the very adjunct or by the very upadhi, which really doesn't have a translation, that it occupies is something which is, called jiva. Really speaking, there is no difference. It's like out of the same milk, you have made yogurt and you have made some whatever cottage cheese. Same thing. Paneer. Same thing. And so one is known as the cause and one is called because. That's all. And the difference is mithya, and the creative power is also mithya because the creative power is dependent upon that consciousness. And the inhibition of that creative power, the blocking of that creative power is also mithya. This is important to understand to go further. And then one finds oneself, therefore, even though Swarupa-wise, nature-wise, there is no difference. It's all consciousness all the way. But yet one finds oneself in a scheme of things that one does not control, that one cannot control. This is what the whole thing is. And this, starting with this body, you cannot control. It has its own idea, it has its own, it has its own plan. You want to get up and take a walk, the body says, no, I'm going to sit and eat cake because that's what I want to do. And you want to be athletic and run a marathon. And, like Usain Bolt. And the body just wants to, not do that, doesn't cooperate. So like this, so many things are there over which one has no say. That's why the infallibility, bringing in this infallibility is very, very important. That which I cannot alter has the signature, rather the presence of Bhagavan. This is what one has to see. And then one comes back to the question of how do I start intervening in this scheme of things? How do I start intervening on my own behalf? Can I intervene on my own behalf? Do I have the agency to intervene on my own behalf? And when this infallibility strikes, is there a way out of it? Is there a way at all out of it? Can I bypass this infallibility? Can I alter this infallibility to be more benign, to be more of a blessing source for me? These are very important questions because the human being has, agency and has a conscious agency in the sense of being endowed with a free will. The human being is endowed with a free will. It's not a small thing. It's a very big thing. So endowed with a free will, it's different than, a dog. A dog just does what it is programmed to do. It has a small little free will here and there. It may prefer one type of food. It may prefer some people over others. But more or less, it is predictable because it is programmed. It is part of it's a manifestation of Bhagavan without any interference. Whereas the jiva in the form of a human being is a manifestation of Bhagavan with a lot of static, background noise. And why background noise? Because there is free will. It's as though Bhagavan poured everything into this human being, to free enough to be conscious, completely self-conscious of oneself and others, and free enough, unfortunately, to be judgmental about oneself and others. Therein lies this freedom. So there is a free will. So it's not like a tree, a dog, a cat. They are predictable. The tree does not say, what is this always standing on the mountaintop? Boring. I'm going to take myself to the beach. Does not go and walk and, root itself at the beach. It behaves in accordance to the laws. It gives flowers and fruits when it is supposed to. And if it blooms when it's not supposed to, it's still part of the plan of this, it's because of human interference and it's still in keeping with that. So it does what it's supposed to when it is supposed to. It behaves exactly how it is supposed to. Whereas in the jiva called the human being, there is a lot of interference. And what is this interference? It is Bhagavan's manifestation plus something else, and plus interference in the form of agency or free will. So agency all the jivas have, but here there is a conscious agency. It is the human being makes a sankalpa, an intentionality is there. which is missing in the kick of the donkey. The donkey kicks. It will kick anybody. It will not say, this is a rich man standing behind me. Maybe he will take me home and keep me as a pet, so I should not kick him. This is a sadhu, supposed to be a holy person. I should not kick the sadhu. I should not kick her. No. It will kick because it just felt like giving a nice kick and it belts out the kick. It has freedom, of action, but it doesn't have freedom over action. But the human being, has the freedom not to kick. And very often, this freedom of agency, this free will is expressed in the privilege of not acting rather than acting. Because acting anybody can do, because the acting is more of a reacting. But what makes one a human being, a refinement that is there in the sense of agency that is bestowed by Bhagavan. In this sense of agency bestowed by Bhagavan, there is a refinement, because that freedom is more often than not expressed in a restraint from acting rather than just reacting. So this is a very beautiful thing. And so this agency is very interesting because, on the one hand, there is free will. One can do whatever one likes. Really? Until it rubs against another manifestation. Yeah. So one can do whatever one likes until the other person complains. You are standing on my toes. Get off. No, I like to stand on your toes. Well, I don't like it, so get off, So, therefore, this agency seems to be free on the one hand, and it's got a certain expression. It is best expressed is many times in not acting rather than acting. And number 3, the agency is articulated. The free will or the agency of the human being is articulated in a scheme of things which is already a preset. It's a preset scheme of things. The rules are there. Sometimes we know, sometimes we don't know. The rule is a manifestation of Bhagavan. Everything is Bhagavan. The agency is also Bhagavan, and the agency is under this umbrella of the laws of Bhagavan, which is Bhagavan. And so one finds oneself in the scheme of things, which is the topic of the 3rd chapter. The very scheme of things within which one finds oneself. Sometimes happy to be in the scheme of things, sometimes chafing against the scheme of things. Chafing at the bit to get out of the scheme of things. Questioning the scheme of things. So what is this thing called the scheme of things? If we just look at the Bhagavad Gita, it gives a very simple fact that which is difficult to miss, but gets missed nonetheless. So the scheme of things is simply understood as the limits of this agency. So what are the limits of this agency? Karmani eva adhikarah te ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala hetur bhuhu. This is the advice given by Lord Krishna to Arjuna. This, sets the parameters of what I am calling the scheme of things. The laws under which this agency is, blossoming, articulating itself. So the rules of engagement for this agency are very, very clearly, understood, clearly, detailed, clearly delineated. But for that reason, sometimes the obvious is missed. And so here, the scheme of things is, very, very clearly articulated. Karmani eva adhikarah te. Your, adhikara. Adhikara here means your right. You have a say, your power. lies, in your agency as far as actions go. You have full freedom. You can act. You need not act. Somebody is doing something, you can do it differently. That's why we have a cuisine for every area of India. How many ways to make dal? You go to East India and then you have that particular, that is what, that mustard seed oil, and then with that they make the dal. You go to North India and then the dal has some, it's mostly butter and little bit of dal there. And you go to South India and then you have this sambar. You go to West India and there's a particular way of making dal, and so why is this whole diversity there? The diversity is there because karmani adhikarahate. There are different ways of doing this based on the region, based on the whatever is growing in that region, whatever that region is famous for, based on one's own, creative, one's own Maya Shakti here. I told you yesterday the human being also has Shakti, albeit it is inhibited because it is, within a scheme of things. So one's own creative potential, let's try it this way, let's try it that way. And so there are many ways of making dal, there are many ways of making paneer, there are many ways. The same recipe will have so many different articulations. And, adding or subtracting a small little ingredient makes all the difference. So, karmani adhikarahate, you are free to do differently. You are free to not do at all. You are free to do, not do it like others, not do it like, others. So this is where is your realm of agency. Your realm of agency lies in the freedom to act or not act. Desist from action, both. But that is where your agency is expressed. Beyond that, what happens? Beyond this, something else is happening. You do not have a say over the results. Very interesting. You are free to act, but you don't control the results. You cannot control the results. I mean, this is a very, very pragmatic understanding. Very pragmatic advice given by Lord Krishna to Arjuna when he was having a panic attack. How am I going to kill my own people? These are my role models. These are the Sreshthas in my life. How can I do this? This is what the advice that is given. Karmani eva adhikarahate. You have a say over action, not over the results. This is not fair. If I have a say over the actions, I should also, be able to control the results. No. That's why the neighbor gets the promotion. You do the hard work. That's why you slog over a project for months in the office, and then, the credit is taken by this moocher who was just sitting there nicely, and then at the last minute came and, put some, put a little bit of a dash of seasoning, put a little bit of cardamom powder and saffron on top of the project, and then it started to smell nice, and then took it and ran and got the meritorious, promotion raise that was due to you. Why is it called raise? Because it raised your temperature. That's why. Because somebody else got the raise. And it was a hair-raising incident. And so that's how it is. You do something, somebody else benefits. Or, okay, somebody else doesn't benefit, but you don't benefit at all. And people come to me, when I go and talk somewhere. After that, they have a question. They don't want to ask it in public. So they want to talk to me privately. And what is it? The question is this: we lead very dharmic lives. We do all the right things. We are following everything properly. We are prayerful. We are, just regular people trying to make it and have some things, some goals for ourselves, for our children. But it looks like we do all the work and do it right, but somebody else gets all the benefit, and that person, who is getting all the benefits, those people seem to be crooks. They don't even know how to spell dharma, let alone follow it. Why is this the case? Why is it like that? That's because of the scheme of things. That's because of this law. Karmani eva adhikara te ma phaleshu kadachana. So this is a law, and a law is an infallible manifestation of Bhagavan, because the results of action, the receipt of the results of action, which is in keeping with the amount of effort put, is assured, but it's not in your hands, because there are a number of intervening factors also in the form of laws over which one has no control, over which one has no say. So that is also in the form of laws. No say at all. Why? Because there are other intervening laws in the form of the law of karma. What is this karma? Karma means the results of action from your own actions, from this life or other lives. Doesn't matter. And so, the belief is that if you have had one human life, just one, in any cycle of creation, there is enough karma, for numerous, there's enough karma for innumerable lifetimes. So much karma is there. And that karma has to be parceled, proportioned, and put away, and then given. And this giver is the same as the giver of everything. The giver of the law of karma is Bhagavan. You are free to act, but within a scheme of things called Bhagavan, called the law of action and result of action. This is a karmic law. This is a karmic law. And that law alone, predominates in this whole thing called the articulation of human agency. That is why people think it's a setup. I'm free to act, but I don't control the results. No, you don't. Simple as that. And the result is an infallible manifestation of whatever is due. Whatever is due only comes. Sometimes the prarabdha is very strong. Prarabdha means whatever that particular karma in this particular lifetime is very strong. And so there is a disconnect wherein the ahankara, the ego, starts to forget that I'm not in charge of the results of action. Action unleashes the results. I can control the action. I can deliberate on the action. I can desist from action, but each of these moves will have a certain result which I cannot control. This is what is called the hidden variable. One of the hidden variables, because you can account for all the variables that are there, that are known. But there's always a hidden variable, And the hidden variable sometimes, is like a wild card. You don't know it is there, and you don't know where it is. You don't know what it looks like. And when we look at the Bhagavad Gita, the picturesque depiction, you find that Lord Krishna is driving the chariot, Arjuna is sitting back in the back of the chariot, and in the authentic depictions, he's having the reins of the 5 horses and turning back. Lord Krishna is turning back to teach Arjuna, who's sitting behind. It's very telling, for our discussion here. It's very, very telling. Because, in selecting Lord Krishna as the charioteer for driving his chariot, Arjuna had with him the hidden variable in the form of Bhagavan at all times. This is something very beautiful. Because that is the main thing that Duryodhana, on the other hand, lacked. Duryodhana had a greater battalion. The Pandavas, Arjuna and his brothers, they had, only 11 battalions. The other side had 18, 1/3 more. And the other side had all kinds of stalwarts. Drona, he was the archer. He was he was a strategist, a diplomat. They had all kinds of people, kings, big kings, whom Duryodhana had bribed and, gotten to join his nefarious ways. They had stealth. They had, a command. They were pushy. They got their way all the time. They should have easily won the war. In fact, the Pandavas had all kinds of odds against them because all the big wigs were on the other side. And here are these people, smaller army, and the only difference is that one of them had Bhagavan on their side and the other one did not. This is the difference. It's a difference between victory and defeat. It's a difference between, life and death really here. And this is what, is very important because both Duryodhana and, Arjuna go to Lord Krishna to ask him something. Krishna is asleep, so to speak. Krishna is taking a nap and then they wait. You cannot rouse somebody who is asleep. It's not the done thing. You can't wake them up. So they wait. With full aplomb and ahankara, Duryodhana waits at the head of Lord Krishna. And very prayerfully, Arjuna goes and sits, kneels down by the feet. So if a sleeping person wakes up, you see what is in front of you, you don't see what is behind. Oh, Arjuna, you have come. I'm here too, he says. Duryodhana says. And, oh, you are here too? Okay. And Lord Krishna knows that they haven't come to have a cup of chai with him, afternoon tea. Lord Krishna doesn't say, okay, let's have samosas. No. Lord Krishna knows that they have come to ask him something. Arjuna's humility is rewarded immediately because he gets the first turn. Duryodhana protests, what is this? I came first. Yes, Duryodhana, you came first, but I saw him first. He gets the first chance. And if Duryodhana could have prayed, he would have prayed at this time because Duryodhana came with the agenda of, this was one more thing on the other side they had. Duryodhana came with the agenda of asking for the Yadava army. The Yadavas are great warriors and they were blessed. Krishna's army was blessed with the boon of indestructibility, and an army that cannot be destroyed. This is what the Kauravas had on their side, and still they managed to lose the battle, lose the war completely, because the hidden variables they could not conquer. They did not have the wherewithal. They didn't understand karmani eva adhikaraha me ma phaleshu kadachana. They didn't understand this maxim. They didn't put it into effect. They thought they were the agents and they controlled the whole situation. And so they fell on their faces. Back to the story here. Arjuna gets the first chance. Again, a happy karmic, gift here. Arjuna being dharmic and, having good actions was due this particular break, and he got this break. Duryodhana wanted the army and he wanted Arjuna to not ask for this army. Duryodhana only knew how to prey upon other people's lives and sentiments all his life, and perhaps this time he changed the spelling of the word and tried to pray, saying, please, whoever you are, if you are in charge, please let him not ask for the army. And yes, he got his wish, because Arjuna said, when Arjuna spoke, what do you want? Krishna asked, and when Arjuna spoke, Arjuna said, I want you. Don't you see on top of my house? Krishna said, there is a Swiss flag, I am neutral, I don't fight, I don't take sides. I will not fight on your behalf. No, I don't want you to fight, I want you to be with me. This is a very telling portion of this. And then Duryodhana asked for the army. Both of them go away happy because both of them got whatever they wanted. But ultimately, it was not the army that fought the battle. Ultimately, it was the presence of the hidden variable, the harnessing of the hidden variable in the form of the Lord, in the form of the laws of the Lord, which made the difference to the battle. The winning was because of that. Because, the presence of Lord Krishna ensured that they were ensnared in their own little plots. For example, Duryodhana had gone to, of all people, he had gone to the brother of Arjuna, Sahadeva, who was a very famous astrologer. Very, very famous. And Sahadeva, look at this. Look at the greatness of Sahadeva. Sahadeva was so well known that Duryodhana went to him and said, when should I start the war so that victory will be mine? And Sahadeva looked at his horoscope and said, this is the time to you can start the war at this time. Imagine. Sahadeva could have easily just muddled up the times or whatever and given him the wrong time. He doesn't give him the wrong time. He gives him the correct time because Sahadeva, along with all the Pandavas, are very righteous. Even if the enemy comes and says, when should I start the war so that it is conducive for my victory? He just did his job as an impartial astrologer. He said, fight at this time. And so Duryodhana goes and sets the time. This is the time we have to fight. And what happens? There is a snag. Something or the other happens. There is a snag. They are unable to assemble their forces. An elephant goes rogue. Something or the other happens just to delay the starting time by 2 minutes. That's enough. 2 minutes off. 2 minutes off, a world of difference. Difference of victory and defeat, winning and losing. That's how Duryodhana lost, because even though he tried, he couldn't do this. And so why did the elephant go rogue? Why were they late? Why was there a delay? Lord Krishna. That is the hidden variable. The hidden variable is in the form of my own karma that is inhibiting the fruits of my agency. This is something I have to see. And this is important because this is how I connect to that scheme of things. And so there were numerous other times where the presence of Krishna overtly helped Arjuna to not lose his head. There was one missile by the name of Nagastra which was deployed by Karna, and this Nagastra had Arjuna's name on it. In those days they had those, these smart bombs are nothing. They had missiles just for one person. And that missile was, mantra powered, and if you set the appropriate mantra and kept the powder dry, and then when you deployed that missile, it would chase that person, against whom it was deployed to the ends of the earth and bring back their head. That was the kind of missiles they had in the Dwapara Yuga, in Lord Krishna's time, in the time of the Mahabharata. And so here, Nagastra is deployed, and the Nagastra wants to, but the nice thing is this, that once it strikes, it's like a one-time missile, it doesn't go back and strike again. And so the Nagastra is coming. Lord Krishna is the charioteer. He knows that if it doesn't strike Arjuna, it will not be, it will not be happy, it will just make a pest of itself, and it will not be satisfied without, taking off Arjuna's head. So he allows it to come and almost hit Arjuna, and when it's about to hit, he dips the chariot enough so just his crown is knocked off. Insult is always better than injury or death in this case. So the presence of Lord Krishna is what makes the difference here. And this is what is a very important way in which one can, intervene on one's own behalf in this scheme of things. One can intervene. And why is this intervention necessary? The intervention is necessary because the scheme of things, is stacked against one's goals, desires, and aspirations. That is why the intervention is necessary, because there is insecurity, because I don't get what I want. Other people get what I want, because I'm not in a position to alter my, to alter my destiny, so to speak. And there is this relentless push towards, wanting all these things in order to be okay. So it seems it's a setup. It's a setup until and unless I study this line from the Bhagavad Gita and make it part of my life. Karmani eva adhikarahate. You have a right over action alone, not over not over the results generated by those actions. The results are in keeping with the laws of action and the laws of results. They can be kept in abeyance. They may be instantly given, or they may not come until the next life. Doesn't matter. You have a say over action. And the next line gives a recipe for not being miserable. Ma karma phala hetuhu bhuhu. Do not be the agent of the result of action, because that is just like, that's just like running uphill all the time. Running uphill with a big boulder all the time. And what is the goal? To put the boulder on top of the hill. As soon as you do that, it rolls down. And then you go up again. It's an uphill task. It's a useless thing. As soon as you say that I am the author of the results of action, life is doomed. Therefore, it is very important to see that I don't control any of the shots. Without seeing this, we cannot go forward. We cannot go forward in this discussion at all of this verse. And so what happens is that when I recognize that the presence of the hidden variable is there, I sense it. I sense it in the form of, even the person who is not a Vaidika, who's not exposed to the Vedas, who's not exposed to anything. Perhaps the caveman in the past, Pujya Swamiji's imagination would come home one day with a big carcass on his shoulder, a rhino, a hippo, something. Yippee, feast. Call all the neighbors. And another day he goes out hunting and what is that? A small little squirrel. That's all he was able to bash on the head and bring home. So many children waiting, spouse waiting, and then if he had a word for karma, maybe he didn't know karma. If he had a word for bad luck, that is what it is. Bad luck, hidden variable in the form of either good luck or bad luck. Good luck nobody notices. That's why I'm not, talking about it. Bad luck, no, everybody notices. So even if one is a non-believer or a non-Hindu, whatever it is, still one knows bad luck. Why? Because that is something, bad luck, disappointment, and not getting the just desserts, I am very, very familiar with. This is everybody's familiar with, because it's a universal experience. The hidden variable pricks. Yes, it's a thorn on the side, and this is something one has to learn how to deal with. A very pragmatic advice is, don't be the author of the results of action. And this is a very important step to understanding that one is not an actor at all. This is we don't, the scope of these talks is not to go there right now. Maybe another time we can deal with that. But that is that is one's destiny, is to see that one is neither the recipient of results nor the actor. But forget about that for the time being, because that is a little more removed than what we have to discuss on hand here. What we are discussing on hand is finding one's place in the scheme of things. In the scheme of things, which is the so-called or the as though separation between myself and the whole. In this vision of oneness, the scheme of things manifest as the laws, throws a little curve, a curved ball, so to speak, throws a little, spoof. Maya Jala, it's like a magician's, a magician's mass hypnotism. The magician hypnotizes the whole audience so that the audience sees things that are not there. This is exactly our situation here. The embodied Chaitanya, the embodied consciousness, starts to identify with the body, with the mind, with the senses, and then finds itself in a scheme of things that it has not made and it doesn't like. Chafing to get out. How to get out? Have an out-of-body experience. That's all. What has to do? So this scheme of things is, something, it appears insurmountable until the code is cracked. And this is the code. And what is the code? The code is, you're not the author of the results of action, so don't even fool yourself by trying to be the agent or the manufacturer of the results of action for yourself or for your family or for any place where you have a certain sphere of influence. You cannot do that. You are not in charge of that. You can only act or not act. That's all you can do. And so, better to hone in on those rules of engagement of how to act, when to act, what to do, what to not do, rather than try to manufacture the results of action. And so that sort of puts the human agency or the expression of the free will in a completely different light. And here, instead of trying to produce something, like you cannot make out of, you cannot make something, You cannot squeeze a stone, the Veda says. You cannot squeeze the stone hard and then get some, what is that called? Oil. You cannot do that. Because the stone does not contain oil, and even if you are very strong and you have very good finger muscles and you keep squeezing, maybe not with one hand, with both hands, I'll squeeze the stone, and then one day some drops of oil will come. No, it's not possible because it is not part of the law. You squeeze a seed, sunflower seed and, sesame seed and all these, what is that, groundnut, peanut seed, you can do that. That will give oil, but not the stone. You cannot squeeze a pebble and then expect it to produce oil because it's just not happening. And so most of the life is lost not understanding the nuances that accompany this law. And so most of the time and most of the life for most of the people, is lost because one doesn't understand the subtleties of these rules of engagement. One doesn't understand one's own agency and its limits thereof. And so one goes about one's life thinking that one can control everything and everybody. And then what happens is another disappointment. And the series of disappointments, makes one a disenchanted jiva. And we're not just talking of this life. Last life, previous life, previous life, previous life, previous life. And then one is yearning for, yearning for something. Yearning to, yearning for things to be easier. Yearning for guidance. Yearning for teaching. And the teaching we are not talking of Brahma Vidya. Teaching in the sense of how do I go about my life? Yearning for somebody in the world who has got it, who has made it. And such people are given a lot of money to come to universities and give talks and come to corporations and give talks. Because they look like they have made it, and I want to also do that. And how have they, in other words, become the authors of the result of their action? Maybe they will teach me how to produce the result of action. And this is where, in addition, yesterday we talked of mummy-daddy issues. In addition to mummy-daddy issues, this is another big pitfall. You don't look for role models to teach you how to be the author of the results of action, because they cannot teach you that. Because they themselves are not that, and if they are honest about it, and if you ask somebody, how did you get to the place where you are at, they will say, a series of happy accidents led me here. If they have emotional maturity, and if they are really truly a leader, they will say that. But yet, one is hungry to harness the results of action globally, individually, collectively. This is what is wrong with the society. This is what is wrong with our efforts, because our efforts are, in a way tainted, because we are trying to control the results of actions, which is a fact which we cannot control. You cannot, because the presence of the hidden variable is there, the presence of your own karma which inhibits this, the results from accruing to you at the time when you want it, in the manner when you want it, is just not there. Not possible. So stop squeezing the stone. Really, stop it. Because this is the second reason why this empty search for Srestha in one's life, is on. Why there is a romanticism around somebody that can guide me. Somebody should tell me what to do, that has already gained this mastery. What kind of mastery? The mastery over authoring the results of action. That's only in the hands of Bhagavan. So then I want Bhagavan. Yes, now we are talking. Come back. Yes. So then I should look towards Bhagavan. Thank you. You made my job easier. That's what you have to do. Replace this desire to go after Sreshthas by making Bhagavan the Srestha. Yes, make Bhagavan the Srestha in your life. Just like Arjuna did, at least that will have some kind of a effect of allowing, allowing the hidden variables to be conducive to you. So how do I make Bhagavan the Srestha in my life? Srestha means an important person. So how do you deal with an important person in your life? Oh, you've come. Wonderful. Please have a seat. What can I get you? Here is a fan if it is hot. Here is a fan. Here is something to eat. Something cool. A little cushion behind your back. This is how the important people are treated in one's life, correct? You show them that they are important by the amount of time you spend with them, by showing them how happy you are to have them in your life, by giving them gifts, by listening to them. Same thing, the Hindu form of worship is not any different from how an important guest is greeted at home. This is what is prayer. You have an altar, you surrender to that altar in the form of prayer, in the form of your own ability to relate to Bhagavan. That is what prayer is. This is what is called prayer. Is your own ability to relate to Bhagavan, your own ability to invoke that altar in the form of Ishta Devata, whatever form that appeals to you. Because everything is Bhagavan, including your, the law of action and results. But unfortunately, you cannot pray to the law of action and results, in an abstract way. So therefore, there is a certain concretization so that there is easy to relate when you think about the hidden variable as an entity. It is easy to relate. That is why we have Chitragupta in the form of the one that controls karma phala. It is a devata. It is a adhisthana devata, a deity. A deity means Bhagavan from the standpoint of action and the results of action is Chitragupta. A mythological figure, a deity that is endowed with the one who gives the fruits of action. So there are communities in India, called Srivastavas, and for them the Ishta Devata is Chitragupta. They all pray to Chitragupta. Very interesting. And so this is what the whole thing is. You cannot pray to the law of action and result in an abstract way. Oh, karma phala, where are you? That doesn't give that atmiyata, that intimacy. So therefore, you have to concretize it, embody it with the same kind of name and form that you have. So you're dealing with another entity. And so that is what it is. Karma phala, Lord Yama, the minion, the deity of death, of endings, Rudra, Vishnu, the one that is all pervasive, Shakti, goddess, you whose power runs the universe. Goddess worship is very, important all over the world and has an abiding presence because it's that feminine power of creativity that is what is, running this universe. And so this is so the rules of this invocation have to do with an embodiment where it is a clean transference, it's a clean projection where I create an embodiment or choose something that is already there, and on top of that I imbue certain characteristics. You are the deity of karma phala, you are this, you are that, you are all pervasive. I project that, but here the projection is not an incorrect projection, it's a correct projection because that Bhagavan is has all those characteristics already. You are all powerful, yes, check. You are that which is in the form of everything that is infallible, yes, check. So there's nothing you can project that is not already there. So therefore it's a very clean and a conscious projection, a deliberate projection, which makes it ready for me to see, me to see that I can relate to this entity. And when I relate to Lord Krishna, then it's different than relating to some abstract, oh karma phala, where are you? Oh fruit of action, come to me. That makes no sense. Lord Krishna, come to me, be with me, yes. Be with me in all my endeavors. Bless me. Wherever you are, I know that whatever is there is going to be successful. Even if it is supposedly failure from the laukika drishtya, from the standpoint of the people, even though it is failure, like one person tried to climb that Everest and went up to first base, the base camp. Base camp means don't think it's just so easy to get there. This is after several days of trekking in very inclement snowstorms and all these kinds of weather. And then you get to the base and then everybody gathers there, takes a little rest and goes. And then one person started to have palpitations and the Sherpa, the person who is in charge of the expedition, said, you cannot go any further, sir. Little age was also little aged, maybe 60 or something, and then you cannot go any further. No, but it's my dream to climb. I really want to do that. Sorry, you cannot go. And the person, happened to be a very prayerful person and took this, he was disappointed, but took it and said, okay, that's all right. And then everybody saw it, oh poor thing, he failed to climb, he failed to be part of the expedition. He had to be sent back. So it is seen from the standpoint of the people as a failure. He cannot put on his Facebook page, here I am at the top of Everest. No. Maybe he'll never be able to climb. But the hidden variable was with him because he was a prayerful person. And he took it to mean that Bhagavan has warded off a greater calamity. Yeah. Maybe the palpitations would have turned into, a simple palpitation would have turned into, a heart attack halfway up. And instead of that, now I can spend my life, concentrating on what I need to do. Nobody needs to climb Everest. It's a hobby. It's some kind of a hobby. So here, instead he got his life back to be able to focus on what he really needed to do, to set his affairs at rest, to enjoy whatever is there of his life, So it's all the question of one's own drishti, and that is where the emotional maturity is, and that is the prasada of the prayerful person. For there is a difference between a praying person and a prayerful person. For the person who prays, a person who prays, for that person, the prayer is an action, a deliberate action. Whereas a prayerful person, for them, prayer is an attitude with which all actions happen. That's what it is. That's why the Bhagavad Gita says that, you are not in charge of the results of action. So therefore, what do? You learn to accept what comes graciously. You can complain, you can jump about, jump up and down if it helps. Whine, cry, start a support group of all people who did not get their, whatever they thought was due to them. All that is okay. It is within the realm of wailing, crying, weeping, laughing, within the gamut of human expression. Sometimes you need the time to get over the shock, to get over pain and sorrow and fear. And okay, take the time. But then you start accepting things gracefully. This is what is the key here. And the ability to accept the things gracefully comes from what? Comes from the blessing here. comes from the blessing of, being a prayerful person. The prayer gives the strength to accept things gracefully. What other choice is there? No, I can rave, rant, I can become a rebel. Become a rebel. Then I can terrorize the whole universe. Go ahead. Terrorize the whole universe. What's going to happen? You are going to be a very sad person. That's what it is. Even the so-called, these terrorists and all these people, they may feel happy. I have killed 20 people. I have killed 50 people. I have killed 100 people. What a sad claim to fame. But then they're not happy. They should be happy. They should be content. But they go and kill more people because they are very discontented. No matter what they get, they are not contented because this is not understood. This very basic thing of learning to accept what comes, because what comes is Bhagavan. It's a prasada of Bhagavan, and so this prasada buddhi in the form of Bhagavan is not understood. Any inhibition in my action, any kind of a block that is there between action and the result of action is also Bhagavan, not understood. Actor is Bhagavan, not understood. Action is a manifestation of Bhagavan, not understood. Therefore, the results of action also Bhagavan, given by Bhagavan, nay, a very manifestation of Bhagavan, not understood. Not at all understood. Yeah. And this is where the problem comes. And this is why one is looking for, and when you look for a Srestha, the looking for the Srestha is like, you look for an important person to help fill that gap between action and result of action. And maybe listening to them, following them will give me more of a mastery over this missing link. It will not happen. Missing link is not missing, it is just not in your hands. You think it is missing, but it is not in your hands. So the prudence here is not in trying to manufacture the results of action or have a say, by fighting with what is. The prudence is learning to let go of the notion that one is even an actor, because only after action comes the result of action. So why should I identify as an actor? Allow that identification to drop. This is what makes one a Srestha really. This is what makes that happen. This is, so the prudence lies in the fact of understanding that it is not a missing link between action and result of action. Between action and result of action is Bhagavan. Action is also because of Bhagavan. How is one able to act? This is how the Kenopanishad begins. Keneshitam preshitam patati manaha. How is the thought forming in the mind? With whose grace, with whose permission, impelled by whom do thoughts fall into the mind? Because you're not in charge of your thoughts. What is going to be your next thought? Tell me. I don't know. That is why. This is what the whole thing is. Who is in charge of the thoughts? Who is in charge of the, who is in charge of the actions? Kena prana, who is in charge of prana? And who is in charge of the hands and the legs? Who is in charge of this? Blessed by which consciousness? Blessed by whom do the actions fall in place? How do I know that this is how I have to act? That itself is a blessing. When you really take this sentence, karmani eva adhikara te, that also we understand that, that adhikara also is given up, really. Because I find myself in a place to act in a series of happy accidents. How did you become the CEO of this company? Series of happy accidents. How did you find yourself singing so well? Series of happy accidents. And any singer will tell you this. I was just singing in the bathroom. I was a bathroom singer in the shower. And then somebody discovered me. How come they discovered you and not some other person who was also a bathroom singer who had a better voice? Karma. This is what it is, the hidden variable. And so, therefore, not only do, the first line, the first level of intervention here is helping myself to understand that I'm not in charge of the results of action. And then a little more maturity comes, and then you give up action itself. Yes. Nimitta matram bhava savya sachin, Arjuna is addressed in the 11th chapter. You please don't be the author of action either. You just be the nimitta, you just be an instrument. You find yourself in the scheme of things, you have to act. You don't have an instruction booklet. You dedicate the result of action to Bhagavan, alright, but then start dedicating the action itself to Bhagavan. Let Bhagavan bless the action. Because what other choice do you have? So therefore, don't identify as an actor, Arjuna is told. Nimitta matram bhava. You just be an instrument of the action. You be a karana. You don't be the actor. Because when you take upon yourself the identity of the agent of action, then, you're making a mistake because you really don't control the results of action. So what kind of an actor are you? Really? A disappointed, disenchanted, angry and rebellious actor, that's what you will be. A guilty actor, a hurt actor, because you're not able to produce the results of action. So whole life you'll be squeezing the pebble to get some oil. And so the wisdom lies in not identifying as the actor either. And that's why in India you praise somebody. Oh, you've done such a marvelous dance performance. God's grace, Guru's grace, mother and father's grace. You put the action. You don't take upon yourself the agency. You divert the agency wherever it belongs. All the graces that have come to make the one, even embodied with this body-mind complex, the ability to act. Really, one doesn't have that. One is not in charge of anything. One cannot create anything. I said yesterday, except confusion. That still remains true. One cannot create anything at all. One can only be the recipient of what is given, and what is given is a lot of grace. A lot of grace to act, a lot of grace to be in the right place at the right time, to be in charge of something, and therefore the action just comes forth easily, spontaneously, when one is able to understand this basic fact. I'm neither the actor nor the recipient of action. I'm neither the doer nor the done-in. I'm not the author. I'm not the recipient. It's very, very important. Something which is glossed over. Because as soon as we say karma yoga, oh yeah, been there, done that, been there, done that. That's why I didn't use the word karma yoga in the beginning. I just quoted the verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which just comes a few, just in the previous chapter to the one that we are studying, which is very important. And so when, one gets to this place of wisdom, that I'm not the actor, I'm not, the manufacturing, I'm neither the actor nor manufacturing the results of action. That is half of the disenchantment and the disappointment, the insecurity, the fear, and all these things that leads one to look for Sreshthas already gone. What about the other half? The other half is going to be discussed in the last class. In the concluding class, we will talk about what else is there that is needed, and how instead of looking for Sreshthas in one's life, how does one, go about becoming that which one is looking for. So how does one become a Srestha, and what all that entails, we will discuss in the morning class. All right? Okay. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. If there are any questions, I will look at. Mentally, I appreciate the need to drop doership. Yet maybe it is habitual error, but I caught up in feeling the actor, although through daily activities, and to sustain this non-doership I find very difficult. Even though the few times I have succeeded, I have felt enormous relief. So how does one sustain this? Keep studying. That's all. It's a habit, right? You have rightly identified that it's a habit. So how does one drop the habit? Through perseverance, through prayer. Yes. Perseverance, prayer, and patience. Yeah, 3 P's. Yeah, perseverance, prayer, and patience. You just keep at it, and it wouldn't be fun if there was not a relapse. Yeah, there has to be a relapse, and only then you can appreciate the process much more and much better. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you asked the question, because I'm sure other people are also having the same question and feeling that. Om.